Hello, everybody out there in radio land. Is once again that time of the week where we come onto your dial and tell y'all what is really going on here in the state of Michigan, the city of Kalamazoo, the so-called United States, and the rest of the world from a working class perspective. Yes, y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Again, weekly news program where we tell you what's really going on and critique the media from a critical working class perspective. As always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 WIDR or Western Michigan University, no matter how dope or insightful they may turn out to be. So, we've got a lot to talk about on today's program, and we're actually going to be joined later on by Lawrence, coming back to the show, has been off for a couple of weeks here, and we're going to be interviewing somebody from the efforts to bring about a ranked choice voting model here in the state of Michigan. So stay tuned for that. That interview is going to be around 12:30. Do have some breaking news, and I beg your forgiveness. I don't have a ton of commentary on this right now, but I will be doing some digging in and hopefully give you a broader insight into this onto next week's show. But it does sound like the city commission has chosen a new city manager, which is a big deal because particularly like with the way the Kalamazoo City Charter in particular is written, the city manager typically has a little bit more outsized power in the day-to-day functioning of the city government. So it was always very critical and something that a lot of us here in Kalamazoo, organizers, activists, and folks in the local media were really paying a lot of attention to because the next city manager really does kind of set the tone for what the city's priorities and kind of the its modus operandi is going to be in the coming years. This is from, I'm just reading directly from WWMT. After months of national recruitment and public engagement, the City Commission voted 6-1 on Monday night to extend the offer for city manager to Malcolm Hankins. Mayor Anderson said the decision reflects commitment to unity and trust building across Kalamazoo. Hankins was elected or selected in large part due to his reputation for relationship building, equity focused decision making, and servant leadership, according to city commissioners. Officials noted the city faces a period of major transitions in leadership, infrastructure developments, and community relations. Commissioners anticipate Hankins' fresh perspective will help steer Kalamazoo in the right direction. Notably, and again, I don't have a really deep analysis for this today, but the initial support came from Commissioners Wilson, Hoffman, Pradell, and Cooney. And particularly Cooney and Hoffman, Stephanie Hoffman and Don Cooney are seen as kind of a couple of the most progressive commissioners currently sitting on the board. The fact that they went out of their way to back them and convince their fellow commissioners to do so as well, I think that is probably one of the more important facts and endorsements thinking about this particular selection. Laura Lamb, who again they have been involved in Kalamazoo politics for a long time, and it's who Mayor Anderson was initially supporting. Did not end up kind of crossing the finish line on that. Again, we'll have a deeper analysis about the selection of city manager in the weeks to come. But at least at a glance, it does look like we have somebody who is backed by some of the more progressive commissioners in the city commission, and somebody who has kind of a more explicit background in equity work. It's a good sign, and we've had a lot of criticisms of Jim Britsema over the years, so it remains to be seen whether this will be a breath of fresh air or just a new face on business as usual. But we are at least looking at a situation where kind of the more, again, progressive commissioners on the city commission got their person, their guy. So we'll follow this story as it develops, but I did at least want to kind of break that. This happened last night at the city commission meeting, and we'll have more details to follow. Um, from there, I actually did want to go to some less good news and talk about again, this has been a recurring theme on our show, and we were talking about this just a couple weeks ago with some legislation against quote unquote squatters. And it looks like the Michigan legislature is really this session, especially Republicans, are trying to penalize uh, those who are homeless or houseless. And this is from an article at the Gazette/M Live. Hearing set for proposed ban on living in vehicles at Michigan rest areas and carpool lots. MDOT, or the Michigan Department of Transportation, wants to prohibit people from camping or living in their cars, living in their vehicle, or leaving their vehicles for long periods in the state's rest areas and carpool lots. This is an article written by Michael Kranz. The Michigan Department of Transportation will hold virtual public hearings on proposed rules that would prohibit people from living in their cars and leaving vehicles in the state's rest areas and carpool lots for extended periods. A link to the Wednesday, October 22nd public hearing can be found, and we will link to it on our show notes. That is tomorrow, by the way, with two sections that day starting at noon and 6 p.m. The public can also provide comment on the rules until November 20th by emailing m.publiccomments@michigan.gov. Feedback from Michiganders may help shape revisions to the proposed rules, which are expected to be in place in 2026. The rules would ban panhandling, camping, and staying for more than 48 hours on MDOT property. Currently, MDOT lacks official administrative rules to enforce these prohibitions. However, officials say they can impound a vehicle if it hasn't been moved in 3 days. MDOT is also asking the state's departmental rulemaking body to allow these new rules. Once in effect, police agencies would enforce the new rules and violations would be a misdemeanor. The rules would apply to MDOT's 61 highway rest areas, 82 roadside parks, 267 carpool lots, 23 scenic turnouts, and 14 welcome centers, as well as the agency's other property, including highways, overpasses, culverts, and right-of-ways, such as sidewalks. MDOT spokesperson Jocelyn Garza previously told MLive the proposed rules target complaints the agency has heard from the public but has been unable to address, such as people camping in state rest areas, people living in their cars at state carpool lots, and people leaving a vehicle in those lots for days on end. Travelers and truckers would still be able to sleep in their vehicles at a rest area under the rules. However, they would have to leave within 48 hours and wouldn't be able to set up a tent or other camping structure. The rules also apply to those sleeping under an overpass, Garza said, adding that she understands that there will be some concerns about forbidding people, usually those without housing, from sleeping in their cars in state lots for multiple days. It's safe to say that with any change, you're going to have some people with concerns. And I think from an MDOT standpoint, we also have concerns. Nobody wants to see somebody displaced, but we also want to make sure that the facilities are a safe environment for all users. And living in your vehicle is not the safest environment. Okay, I'm just gonna do an aside here really quick. Living in your vehicle is not the safest environment to live in, but people who are forced to live in their vehicles typically don't have another choice. They don't do it for fun. It's like, oh, I think I'd rather just live in my car. I mean, there is a whole kind of kind of car glamping YouTube, TikTok scene out there. But that's not really what I'm referring to. I'm referring to people in dire economic straits. They can't afford to rent a home or own one, and they are forced to live in their vehicle. Their vehicle is basically their last refuge. And what Jocelyn Garza is doing with her verbiage here is making it seem like it's some sort of choice that people have. People are just, again, just sleeping at rest stops in their cars for fun, not out of economic necessity, not out of desperation. There's nothing in that paragraph that Jocelyn Garza offered up that speaks to that dire concern, that dire need. And it's a trend that we're seeing where, we've seen it here in Kalamazoo as well, offering people a $1,000 voucher to bus out of town. And that's not a permanent solution to the housing crisis. It's kicking the can. And again, all this law would do would just be to, again, continue to kick the can. People who are houseless and living in their cars would basically have to just, like hermit crabs, just go to from lot to lot to lot in order to find somewhere to sleep, which again costs gas money and is again it is imposing another poor tax on people who are already at the severe one of the severest of economic disadvantages where their vehicle is their last refuge. No, it is not a safe environment to live in their car. It is not. But again, what are the economic conditions that brought them to that place of unsafety? It wasn't some individual choice. It wasn't because they thought, again, sleeping at a rest stop would be a ton of fun. It is because that is the last option they have at their disposal. And we see this kind of rhetoric from both the left and the right. Again, the right is a little bit more on the punitive side, but this abstraction of houselessness as if it's just some unsafe practice that people should avoid. Again, people who have to sleep at a rest stop are doing it out of economic desperation. And instead of targeting the economic sources of that desperation, we are trying to use the law to ban houseless people out of existence and out of options. Going on to say panhandling would also be forbidden on all MDOT property. While the rules don't explicitly mention panhandling, they do target and forbid people from requesting donations or money or selling items on MDOT property. The exception to this is charitable organizations, which may seek donations on MDOT property, but only with official permission. Demonstrating, protesting, and distributing literature soliciting membership would also be prohibited on MDOT property unless officially permitted and not interfering with safety or facility use. Now that's another. This is a thing. Like now, one, I just have to say, anecdotally, I have personally never been panhandled at or you know, or even had like literature sprung on me at a highway rest area. It's not something that has ever happened to me. I can't disconclude the idea that it has happened to other folks in the past, but it's definitely a lot rarer than you would find in any average downtown, whether you're talking about an urban or a rural downtown area. And what's interesting to me is, the whole, distributing literature bit seems a little bit out of place. We're talking about people sleeping in the cars. What does that have to do with literature? And again, it is another way to kind of incorporate some of the restrictions on First Amendment activity that we have been seeing, especially from the federal government, but also from state governments that want to play ball. And this can come from conservatives, but it can also come from liberals as well. We really shouldn't forget, a lot of the pushback, the institutional pushback against the anti-genocide protesters, that sprung up, shedding light on what's going on in Gaza. A lot of that institutional pushback and again, authoritarian crackdown came from the Biden administration when they were still in charge. And again, what we're seeing here in while passing out communist literature at a rest stop was not really a tactic that had come to mind. Maybe that's something that springs in the mind of some activists down the road, and this legislation would prohibit them from doing so. Now, again, there are other laws that kind of prohibit sort of politicizing on a federal ground. There's been discussions, particularly about how some of the political videos, say made by Kristi Noem, have been violating the Hatch Act. But a lot of people, most people would interpret that as the state is not allowed to politicize stuff and distribute on the grounds. It's not necessarily supposed to apply to average everyday citizens. So it's interesting to me that, like, again, this is a solution to a problem that I don't necessarily think exists, but it also does inhibit the way allow people are allowed to express and dialogue with each other in, what a rest stop is, may not be a typical public square, but it is a public square nonetheless. Also, again, the rules also do speak to, people dumping wastewater and more practical things that, I think just about anybody could agree with. But again, it is these very practical prohibitions on things like dumping waste or disposing of like auto parts and that sort of thing, wrapped around what it is at its heart, a vital question about houselessness and how we as the state of Michigan and the people of Michigan are supposed to address it and deal with it. And it's a sad, I think it is a profoundly sad thing when we are trying to, again, first outlaw it rather than address it at its root causes. If we had a more robust infrastructure to deal with housing, if we had housing first policies across the state, you would not have people sleeping at rest stops. You'd think this idea, this fact would be common sense, but common sense, I guess, just isn't quite as common as it used to be. Anyway, if you want to read that article for yourself, you can find out in live. Hearing set for proposed ban on living in vehicles at Michigan rest areas and carpool lots. It was published on October 15th, written by Michael Kranz. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. We come back. We will be joined by a guest to talk about ranked choice voting in just a bit here. Keep it locked. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online on Facebook, YouTube, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast you can find on most podcasting apps. Keep it locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. Hello again, everybody out there in Radio Land. Y'all are once again listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. I'm joined now by Lukas Filcek. He's come on to the show. Some of you may recognize him from, okay, I'm sorry, what's your show and slot again? Should have
Right,
asked
it's
that.
okay. Thanks for having me,
Yeah.
first of all. My name is Lucas. I'm the host of Audiophile Hour every Saturday at 2 p.m., a show put on by and for music lovers. We speak critically about music, talk about like recent developments in that art medium, and yeah, it's just a place for me to share my passions about it. Don't talk a ton of politics on there. Sometimes when it pertains to like AI stuff, I'm pretty vocal about that because that's a very relevant threat to artistry in our current culture. So,
Yeah, I don't think I'm not doing a big story about it tonight. I know there's been a lot of kind of pressure on Spotify lately for
well, yeah,
like sharing
yeah,
or platforming AI music on there.
right. And I've
So,
I've talked a little bit about that
mhm,
myself,
yeah, but
but yeah, the politics is mostly separate from what I do on the show. But yeah, I do consider myself to be an activist of sorts. I do work with a group called Rank My Vote as an unpaid volunteer. We are a grassroots organization looking to bring ranked choice voting to the state of Michigan. I actually have my petition signatures in my backpack. I have
ooh,
them at
yeah,
me at all times. I can even like I'm probably gonna take it out for this.
yeah.
I didn't know it was gonna be recorded. If I did, I would have gotten this out so
Yeah.
that I wouldn't have to turn around and show you guys.
Uh, for those who are listening to the audio version, he is grabbing his packet right now. I'm sorry, is he they? I should
Yeah, yeah.
ask pronouns real quick.
He.
He okay. So yeah, as I said, we're not bringing you on to talk about the music show so much as again this
Mhm.
effort to get ranked choice voting here in Michigan. This is something that a longtime listener, we've talked about this on the show before, but the last year or two, we've seen a concerted effort from Rank My Vote, that's Rank MI, like Michigan, to make that a reality here in Michigan. But for those who may be unfamiliar with ranked choice voting, could you maybe just quickly explain to our listeners what is ranked choice voting? Why is it important? Why is it kind of better than the way we see our ballots right now?
Right. So the way that I put it as succinctly as possible, I suppose, is that under the way that you're voting right now, your ballot looks something like this, where you have one candidate. You're basically just voting for, I guess, whichever candidate you think can win, I suppose, because the idea here is that like maybe there's a candidate you really do think would be good for this specific election, be it like a mayoral election or a gubernatorial election, just whatever the position is, you think this person will be best. But they have no chance at winning because they're a third party candidate, they're an independent candidate, they don't have the funding. And so instead, you engage in what is called strategic voting, where you vote instead for I guess one of the candidates you think has a chance of winning, and you just choose the one that's less bad. So
As a
you
less
try
less
and
LEV or lesser evil voting, as we sometimes
lesser
call
of
it.
two evils.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So with that, if you're presented with a ballot under ranked choice voting, you get to, as I say, kind of rank the
Hmm.
candidates, correct? Yes.
Yes, you rank the candidates in order of preference. With our specific goal in the amendment, you would be able to rank up to five. So you can rank five candidates, your top five, your top four, your top three, your top two, or you can just vote as you currently are. You can just put one if you
Hmm.
want to.
Hmm.
That option's still available.
And essentially, what basically how it would work is like if your top candidate does not kind of cross the threshold in terms of support, your vote then goes to whoever you vote, you rank number two or three, so on and so forth, right?
Yes, so the low at once all the votes are tabulated, if nobody has a majority, if nobody has 50% plus one, then the lowest scoring candidate is eliminated. And the people who ranked them as their first candidate have their votes transferred to their second choices. And this process continues until somebody has a majority of the vote.
Yeah. And
If if in the first round somebody already has a majority, they just win outright. So because this would make it so that a lot of our elections here in Michigan would be much more representative because we are a swing state for better or for worse. We have that kind of sway, and a lot of the times, the people who win our statewide and national elections do not do so with a majority of support.
yeah, yeah, and just to kind of like dig in a little further, I know you mentioned this, but kind of there's always a fear of like the spoiler effect. And
Mhm.
this is actually both sides of the aisle too. There are a lot of conservatives out there who might vote for like the Libertarian Party, but they've been spooked for whatever reason about liberals. And then of course, you always hear, you can't vote for the Green Party or the Socialists or whatever because that's going to help Trump or Bush or whoever win. And this basically would eliminate that effect. So, like, again, if you're the top of your ticket is a Green Party or like Socialist Party person, and say you rank below that, say like a Democrat or something, then that vote would go to them instead of just being a quote unquote spoiler vote. We've also seen, this, and we'll get into this in a little bit further, but this has been deployed or enacted in different places around the country, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. I was kind of curious though, anytime you're doing one of these, ballot petitions that kind of ruffle people's feathers. I know I was doing some work with We the People about, getting kind of tenants' rights reforms in here, and you always ruffle a little bit of some feathers from kind of the rich and powerful. I was kind of curious, what kind of opposition has Rank My Vote faced here as you've worked to get it passed in Michigan?
Right. So I've heard a few stories from like some of my peers, just kind of like on the smaller level. I've heard of like some of my peers have been like harassed to various extents. I haven't faced much of that, thank goodness, but it is something that definitely happens. I think I heard a story from one of my colleagues about like there's this guy who's just like basically like spat. They tried to at least, which like that's not the best. It's not the best. I think there was like a heckler who like talked to another one who's like, "Do you want AOC to be like our dictator?" And she just like responded. She's just like, "Yeah, yeah."
That-
I don't even know what she believes if she even thinks like likes AOC because we're a nonpartisan
Yeah.
group all, from all across the
Yeah.
political spectrum. But yeah, it's just like when people say stuff like that, you just have to like push it aside. Just yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's and that's kind of an interesting question too. Have you seen more pushback from? Because I feel like it's something that you hear you get pushback from both kind of on the left and the right, as well as support from the left and right. There's a lot again. There's a lot of
Right.
people who would want a more kind of robust democratic way to choose their candidates. But have you seen more pushback from kind of liberals or conservatives, or maybe like just a even mixture of both?
Um, that's actually a pretty good question. I do know that kind of we were talking like on the individual level. I think that on the systemic level, I have we have seen that in the current Congress in the state of Michigan, the state house, uh, they passed a resolution to ban ranked choice voting.
Hmm.
Um, it hasn't advanced really to the Senate. I mean, it's passed through the House, and I don't think the governor would sign it, but it is something that has happened. Um, the House of Representatives in the state of Michigan is currently run by Republicans by a small margin. Um, and the resolution was passed on a party line vote. Um, Overall, I mean, I think the reality is we're trying to help them too. We want everyone to be able to be better represented and have a greater say in what happens in our states. And that's why we're doing this. I think I want conservatives to be able to live good lives. I want them to be able to really vote their conscience when they go to the polls. And I think that's also what this is about. So ultimately, whether I could like blame liberals or blame conservatives, I guess it's like at the end of the day, it's like you can like say, I guess to say the answer to the question, I guess it might be conservatives, but overall, I cannot say this enough. You're welcome here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it reminds me of there's a quote from Robin D.G. Kelly, who's a great historian, but he's being interviewed by Democracy Now! About kind of a lot of the authoritarianism we've seen under Trump, and he quoted to say, of course there are some true believers who really like what the Trump administration is doing, but he said, and I quote, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but if you have a hard time understanding why like a more middle of the road conservative would vote for Trump, if you held your nose to vote for Kamala Harris despite the genocide going on, then you should have an implicit understanding because again, especially a lot of the media framing that people on the right gets are about how again how like demonic and stuff the Democratic Party is. So what ranked choice voting I really think does it would kind of level the playing field in that way, and both parties would not have that as kind of a tool in their pocket to kind of make people fall in line to quote vote for whatever they perceive to be kind of the lesser of two evils. And as we see it, like it really does a toll takes a toll on our body politic. In the last election, I think of Democratic Party was engaging in lawfare to try to get the Green Party off the ballot in places. You had the Republican Party kind of saw a big threat from RFK Jr.'s independent candidacy, and they kind of took a different tactic. They bought him out by offering a cabinet position, which has had some not so great effects on the country either. But yeah, it is a really big issue with both sides, and it's kind of this is sort of the corrective that RCV is trying to offer. Um, I was wondering if you could maybe provide our listeners with some examples of states and municipalities that have already enacted ranked choice voting and what kind of effect that's had on their politics.
Right, of course. So the three kind of places that I want to talk about, two of which are U.S. states. One is a city. The state of Maine, first of all, in their election, they enacted ranked choice voting in 2016, so they were the first state to do so of the two. Um, in the 2018 congressional race in their second district, the incumbent was a Republican. Um, During that election, in the first round, this Republican got 49.3% of the votes. or something of that sort. I don't remember the exact numbers, but there was an independent candidate who received 5% of the vote, and this Republican and this Democrat really, really close together in the number of votes they got. The Republican had slightly more, but still only a plurality. So the majority of people do not want that Republican in office. So what happens is that after the votes are tabulated, after the independent candidate is eliminated, the Democrat actually ends up having the majority of votes. So this implies a broader coalition behind that Democratic candidate. And it resulted in the election of a candidate that had broader support and better represented the will of Maine's second congressional district.
Yeah,
That's
that's
just one
great. Yeah,
example.
and I know a lot of people who maybe never heard of ranked choice voting. Some of them first heard about it the recent election in New York City. I was wondering if maybe you had any comments on that as far as like how RCV was implemented there and how that kind of again changed the election calculus out there.
Right. So with New York City, it's a little bit of a different case because they only use ranked choice voting in their primaries. But this still has been shown to have some interesting effects. So they voted to use ranked choice voting in 2019, and it was first used in 2021. During 2019, the city of New York, their city council, there were 10 women on that of the 51 seats on that city council, which is like maybe 20%, I suppose. Despite the fact the city is about 51% women. So realistically, or ideally, you'd want to see at least half of the people on the city council be women because that's what's representative of the people, right? After that election on the 21st, the number of women in the city council jumped all the way from 10 up to, I want to say, like 27 or something of that sort. You can look up the exact number, but you can see this happen where it's like even not even just like talking about like ideology. This doesn't benefit any particular ideology, and this isn't even like the goal of ranked choice voting is to get women in politics. It's just what happens when you create an environment where people vote their conscience is that the people who end up representing you look like the population as a whole, which is good for our democracy. It allows for varying perspectives. It allows for marginalized groups to have their fair share in our political systems.
Great. And I don't have too many other questions. I would, if there's any like particular points about ranked choice voting that maybe I didn't ask about or that we didn't discuss, I kind of give you a platform to talk about it right now.
Well, I am a political elections a bit of a junkie. It's something that I'm very interested
No,
in.
you're in the right place. No,
Oh yeah, I've definitely like looked over the numbers. That's something that's always fascinating to me every 4 years, even 2 years, even like now. Like the elections in New York City are very interesting. But at the same time, it also just gets a little bit blasé at times because 90% of the races are entirely uncontested and just there's you know exactly what's going to happen. It's just going to be the same kind of status quo. It's like you have the Republicans who are going to do stuff, and then Democrats who are also, I guess, going to not do stuff usually. And it's like we can do better than this, is kind of the point I'm getting at. I want to be able to, ideally, there should be like every ideally every race should be like a four-way race, if that makes sense, right? There should be a number of viable candidates that represent a sizable amount of the electorate in their districts, and they should be able to rank candidates in order of their preference to really decide who has the broader coalition, who best represents this group of people. And I think it also just like really it lowers the temperature. It's forces these people to get along with each other because you can't like get upset at like everyone for everything. You have to win some of those second or third place votes in that scenario where you're only getting like 30% in the first round because then you can't just win off of being like too big to fail, I guess. Right.
Right. Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And I think like that piece you said about lowering the temperature,
Mm.
I think something that a lot of people forget is, our show is a lot about critiquing the mainstream media, and there is
Hmm.
played a big role in again uh, turning up the temperature. Particularly outlets like Fox News, OAN, and Newsmax. Although again, you see a lot of the kind of the way that some of the mainstream liberal outlets try to tamp down enthusiasm for progressive candidates, and you also with like gerrymandering, you see a lot of the time where candidates will kind of run to the extreme because of how those districts have been made. But by elevating more diverse choices and voices in these elections through ranked choice voting, that is a good way to not only get some fresh perspectives into the political system, but it is a good way to, again, politicians necessarily have to kind of compromise more to like the views of the majority of where they want to represent, rather than just to kind of like the most what the, kind of probably intense or ideologically intense sectors of their base. So with that, I wanted to ask real quick if we have listeners on the show who are interested in this, or they want to get involved in the efforts to get ranked choice voting in Michigan. How would they do that?
Right. So, I don't know if you're watching on the podcast, we actually have a QR code right here you can scan to get to our website. But if you are not, you would be able to visit our website at rankmyvote.org. That's rankmivote.org. I have the petitions with me pretty much all the time. They just kind of live in my backpack, honestly. So whenever I'm on campus, if you see me, you can ask me about it. Um, and I'm also, I guess, like kind of the de facto president of the efforts on Western Michigan University. I have a few other people who are circulating petitions with me as well, other students. And we would love to have people. So if that's something that interests you, you can visit our website again at rankmyvote.org, and we would love to be able to plug some folks in. Just get some more folks out there, get some fresh blood into the uh thing.
Yeah,
Know how to speak.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So from fresh blood into the struggle. There you go.
into the struggle.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
All right. Well, Lucas, I really want to thank you for taking time on
Yeah.
our program to talk about this really important issue. I mean, just speaking personally, I hope Michigan is the next domino to fall in this
Hmm.
effort for ranked choice voting, because we are at a time where we're not sure whatever democracy we have in America is very much under attack, and
Hmm.
the antidote to that is more democracy. So,
Yes,
all right, Lucas, thanks again for coming on our program.
absolutely.
Yep.
I'll set my thing
All
down
right.
so that I
Best
can
of luck
check
to
your
you.
thing.
We will link to rank my vote in our show notes. And everybody else, stay tuned. We got more to come on today's program. Keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political
Revolution.
revolution. Hello again, everybody out there in radio land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. I think my co-host should be joining us in just a minute. Right now, I'm going to read really quick from um, Tristan Taylor, is a co-founder of Detroit Will Breathe. We're going to be talking about No Kings here in a bit, and I wanted to go straight to one of what I thought was one of the most powerful speeches of the day. And this is Tristan Taylor speaking at the No Kings event in Detroit, where thousands of people came out to protest the authoritarian overreach by the Trump administration. But these are some words from Tristan Taylor, who's co-founder of Detroit Will Breathe and a writer contributor and member of Left Voice. Uh, he said, they said, I am glad to be here with others who refuse to accept authoritarianism and Trump's attacks on the working class and the oppressed here and abroad. Like many of you, I am outraged at how some leaders in the United States have responded to this threat. Just days ago, a black Democratic minister running for mayor of Detroit said that he would willingly coordinate with federal troops. While the other candidates said they opposed it, they refused to speak out against Detroit's working relationship with ICE and other federal agencies, who routinely terrorize black and brown communities with physically brutal raids. Nor are they prepared to take on the billionaires, who, unlike undocumented immigrants or workers in other countries, are the real culprits behind the growing inequality that workers here are experiencing. In fact, right in front of us is the old train station that was renovated by Ford, receiving over $100 million in tax abatements. In other words, yet another company worth billions of dollars brutally exploited its workers and got away with not paying taxes in the city of Detroit. And again, I want to point out you can read their entire speech over at Left Voice. No kings, no bosses, no billionaires. Fighting the right in Detroit demands working class power. From Tristan Taylor. I'm going to be right back. We're going to be bringing our co-host in to talk about the issues of the day. Keep your dial locked. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. All right, everybody, we are back. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Joined by my co-host Lawrence. Lawrence, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Oh, pretty well. Actually, I just had anniversary weekend. Got to go jog
Yeah.
in the wood, not jog in the woods, hike through the woods for a bit, kind of get away from it all for
Oh
just
yeah,
a minute
man.
or two. Yeah.
Nah. Oh yeah, man. Just fantastic.
hmm
Wonderful. I'm happy.
That
I'm happy for you.
That's a pro tip, everybody. If you're doom scrolling about all the stuff going on, find some time. Go. If you're in Kalamazoo, got Kleinstock, the Nature Center. There's Selly Flats, all that other stuff. Go get some nature a little bit amidst all the madness.
Yeah.
Leave the phone in your
Yeah.
car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Find a spouse, get married, and then go take walks with them.
That too. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. What was
Yeah.
that? What was that quote from a few years ago? These anti-fascists are committing seduction. So go commit some
Right.
seduction. There you go.
Yes. 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 We have to. Dog. Oh my God. Speaking of fascism, man.
yeah.
Look, there's so many things. I haven't been on here for a while, and there's so many stories that we need to talk about. Uh, I haven't been on here since I think the last time I haven't been on here since Charlie Kirk passed away.
Yeah, that's wild. It's been like
So
about a month
yeah,
and
it's
a
been a
half, I
while.
think. Yeah.
Yeah, and
hmm
since then, Trump has sent the National Guard to black cities that historically had low crime rates. You know what I'm
hmm
saying?
Yeah.
Uh, some of these uh, some of these National Guard members were nicknamed Meal Team Six because because they were
Uh,
rotund and
mhm.
was not in shape. That's especially the ones that were sent to Chicago. Like
Yeah, I saw that viral. Yeah.
so there's so many things. Okay, so no, I'm gonna start with a quick hit because we have so many stories we have to talk about. But I'm gonna start with a quick hit. Um, I first of all, when it came to the whole thing with about Charlie, and I know it's been talked to death, and I don't want to add any. I want to add any more insult to injury, but as a Christian, I have sympathy for his children. No child should grow up without a father, no matter how deplorable and disgusting their father is.
Are you
Right?
talking about Charlie Kirk?
Their parent.
Or is that what?
Yes,
Okay,
Charlie
okay.
Kirk.
All right.
So like, I have sympathy for his children. Like, you know what I'm saying? Sympathy and empathy for them. His wife married that troglodyte, so it is what it is. And Charlie, It was a pastor. It was a pastor that said it. I think a month and some change ago. Just because you died horrifically does not absolve you from what you did while you were alive.
100%.
Um, Charlie, uh, Charlie was a person who made his living downplaying, dehumanizing, and harming everyone that everyone except the oligarchs that were paying him. And he passed away in an environment that he helped cultivate. He
Hmm.
wanted he wanted schools to allow people to carry guns on schools. He was at a university that did so. He did not like minorities. He said minorities were the ones that was usually causing most of the violence. The state that he was in is Utah. Utah is the whitest state in our union, and he was killed unalived by someone that was a right wing neo-Nazi raper that grew
Yeah,
up in an environment around guns and conservative values. I'm I am sad that that happened to that man because we should not people should not feel like they cannot interact with the wider world in our world because of their political speech. But when your political speech harbors and creates and sows violence, the fruit of that labor will come to fruition one way or another.
yep, yep, yeah. You put hate out in the world, you might just get it back. And you know, one
Yeah.
interesting thing, because I talked about Charlie Kirk to death. No, no pun intended. Uh,
Yeah.
that would have happened. But one thing, kind of postscript about Charlie Kirk's death, I predicted at the time that much like Rush Limbaugh, given a little time, he would just be like this angry fart historically. Like nobody would really talk about him afterward, and like nobody talks about Rush Limbaugh anymore. And he was like the king of right wing talk through the 90s and 00s. And you pretty much saw that happen like very quickly in real time. Like 2 weeks after Charlie Kirk's death, if you're watching, it's like you saw it peak and then it just plummeted. As far as like Google and DuckDuckGo searches and all that stuff, nobody except
Because
for
people started to
yeah,
read what he said.
yeah, yeah. It's like except for people on the far right who are trying to canonize him, most normal people are not talking about Charlie Kirk at all anymore. And
Yeah.
that's basically what I predicted. Now, that's not to say that there aren't a lot of other kind of right wingers in waiting in the wings to take his place, but it does say that like the impact of these people on the world, like again, his legacy is normalizing like neo-Nazi discourse for a mainstream audience, which is a pretty terrible legacy.
Yeah.
But him as a person, he's not. Again, he's not. He's not being remembered in the way that Again, they want to put this dude on money. They want to make statues of him. Rest of this
The
country is like, nah, I don't care about that dude. I'm
the
sorry.
thing that made me so disgusted about this discourse, and we have more important stuff to talk about, and this is the last thing I'm gonna talk about it. The thing that made me the most disgusted about the discourse, outside of Ezra Klein's conversation with Ta-Nehisi Coates, which was fantastic, by the way. That was a fantastic conversation. Of Ta-Nehisi Coates basically telling him, "You're whitewashing a very racist neo-Nazi person, and I need you to stop. Like silence is the option.
Yeah.
Don't do that." The thing that made me so sick was the resolution in Congress when Congress was trying to basically give him like a memorial day or a memorial statue or like they were trying to celebrate him. And the only people and there was two votes that were against it. That was two white people that voted against it. And there was 48 other people who voted against it. 46 of the people who voted against it in Congress was minorities. and it was only minorities. Why? Because it showed that the rhetoric that young person was saying did not affect them or the people that they feel like is a part of their constituents. Since Charlie did not go after though the people that were in their constituents, celebrating that young man,
Just to underscore, that
celebrating
was
that,
both Republicans and Democrats that voted for like a Charlie Kirk Memorial Day. So
yeah, and and that's the thing. This man celebrated Nancy Pelosi's husband getting beat with a hammer. He cracked jokes about it. This is a man who celebrated or and did not condemn the killing of the Minnesota lawmakers. This is a man who was okay with vigilante justice when it came to Jordan Neely. He talked badly about Trayvon Martin and others. This is a man talked about who talked about certain deaths need to take place so that we can have a Second Amendment. And this is the person we're celebrating. I would love I would love to see the people who were giving him like that were whitewashing his legacy do the same thing for someone like Minister Louis Farrakhan. They won't.
yeah.
And
Well, I mean, even
I don't.
I think
Wait.
as somebody pointed out, it took like 30 years for Martin Luther King to get a holiday. It took Charlie Kirk 2 weeks, something like that.
Right. No, it's not even just that. I'm like, we just had the No Kings protest that took place, right? And the reason why I bring this, and the reason why I brought up Farrakhan, because I'm not even trying to praise Farrakhan or anything of the sort. He created the environment that got assassinated, so he gets no praise from me. But the Nation of Islam created grocery stores and food deserts in black neighborhoods. They did gun buyback programs in black neighborhoods. They tried to stop the violence in education in minority neighborhoods across the country. TPUSA helped take people to the Capitol on January 6th. So the largest act of political violence in modern American history, Charlie Kirk was a part of. And it was an attack on those people's lives. And they want to celebrate him. That's the thing that made me the most sick. I'm like, oh no, y'all are disgusting. Y'all are truly disgusting human beings.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, speaking of the No Kings protest, bro.
Yeah. So spend some time talking about that. Yeah.
Dog, there was over 10,000 people in Grand Rapids. Grand Rapids was popping this weekend.
I think that in Kalamazoo too, which is
Yes.
something like okay. Let me do the math real quick, but keep talking about.
So the No Kings protest was the largest protest in American history, uh, that we have had to date. That is on record. This was larger than the Me Too protests. This was larger than the Black Lives Matter protests. And I'm not saying that because those protests, which were consistent and ongoing, uh, people, if you it doesn't matter where you are on the political spectrum. There are certain things in this country that the American people, it doesn't matter where you are politically, that we're saying we are not okay with this. This is not how we do things here. So we're gonna say no. We're gonna say no, and we're gonna say no, we ain't doing this. And I think it's beautiful. It was a beautiful thing to see. I wish that the amount of people that were this animated that's now been feeling the effects of Doge and its cuts, the tariffs and the tariff wars, the fact that ground beef and other food has now gone up 40% because of inflation, and just the instability that this troglodyte that we have as a president has has created and his administration has created. I wish that we had all of this energy November November 5th, so that Trump
Uh,
wouldn't have been in power. I wish people would have been more aware and stayed more aware back then, but we're here now. You know what I'm saying? And it's good to see people actually caring about like people. I feel like people had to feel how bad it was again, because it's not like we didn't see Trump's first administration and how bad it was. We saw the first administration how bad it was. Now we're getting it twice as bad.
oh yeah, no, absolutely. And
so so people came out to say, nah, um, we don't like how this administration is going. We did not sign up for half of a plurality of the country signed up for fascists, and they're saying step on me daddy. That is not what we are for. That's not what the majority of Americans want. And it was a beautiful thing. It warmed my heart to see people get organized and want to fight back.
hmm And I think there's I wasn't there because I had to work and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
that said, like it was really encouraging. You look at a lot of the signage, and a lot of it has a really great degree of like class consciousness to it. Tax the rich, no to oligarchs and all that stuff. And I think there's been a lot of discourse online about kind of the more centrist liberal nature of some of the people up the top who are organizing these protests, and I want to spend a little bit of time talking about it because you'd have to separate a few things. And I guess something that's interesting to me, that I know there's a lot of discourse about this protest I hadn't seen in just kind of previous ones. Now, I think it's
Oh,
it's
Fox News
natural.
calling everybody terrorists and
Oh yeah, yeah.
jihadi sympathizers. Jihadi
It's
sympathizers.
funny because like on one side, again, if you're on the left, it was it was completely made up of just feckless liberals. But if you're on the right, it was a bunch of Antifa super soldiers, or not. Like they kind of went back and forth. Some were like, "Oh, it's Antifa terrorists," and then it's like, "Oh, just a bunch of pathetic old people." It's like pick a lane. But
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wanted
Pick a struggle.
yeah, yeah. I did want to underscore like a couple of things, because you know the big critique is that these protests are performative. They're not really like turning the wheel. They're not being disruptive. I think that's true, but it's also getting a lot of people out into the streets for the first time. I think that is worth celebrating. I'd also say like if you're a seasoned organizer, it is a really great opportunity to kind of have those conversations and recruit people towards strategies of change that are more durable and effective. I had some comrades out there getting signatures for kind of tenants' rights here in the city of Kalamazoo, trying to build out tenants unions, that sort of thing. And I think that's really important. I think it is important to recognize that some of the people up top who are organizing this protest are centrists, and their objective is not the same as the objective of people who are coming out in the streets with signs. Their objective is to draw that energy, that resistance back into the centrist wing of the Democratic Party. I don't really think that's going to happen. It's just people are frustrated, but it is there is an attempt. I mean, you had Hillary Clinton. Any protest that gets the stamp of approval from like Hillary Clinton is maybe something you should be a little suspicious of. But I think despite their best efforts, you saw people at these No Kings protests across the country who were explicitly pro-worker, explicitly anti-capitalist, who were spreading that type of message. And even, again, everywhere is different. I do like to point out that, indivisible Kalamazoo, while there is a critique that is very true, especially in some places, of kind of white liberals who think they invented protesting for the first time. I do think local leadership has done a good job of incorporating the existing and diverse activist culture of Kalamazoo. You also have to give props to 5051 Michigan. There were some of the satellite protests in some states and cities who were trying to clamp down on messaging related to Gaza, whereas 5051 Michigan, at least, has explicitly, put out a statement against the genocide. So, you have to understand, like, yes, you should be suspicious of, things that are given support by a faction of the system, so, centrist Democrats out supporting it. But you also have to understand that this biggest protest in history, and it contained multitudes and a lot of people that I think can really be drawn in to a more durable struggle. I want to give you some more space. I have a few more thoughts on this, but I want to give you some more space, maybe respond to some of that, Lawrence.
I mean, yeah, man. I think that yes, you're going to have the big tent party. You're going to have people who are neoliberals. That's a part of it. You're going to have people who are much more conservative than all of us. It doesn't. This is we're both nerds. This is at one time in the Justice League cartoon when you had villains and superheroes all coming together to fight against Darkseid. And it was
Yeah.
in Justice.
Yep.
It was Justice League Unlimited. That was
Yep.
this. That was this. Okay. Look, I don't like Margaret Taylor Greene. I don't like a lot of conservatives in this modern age because a lot of them are just fascists, right? We're not. I'm not playing with y'all. With that being said, if you can, when you have people like Ron Paul and those libertarians that are like, nah, Trump has gone too far. Okay, the stuff that he is going is too far, and recognizing, even if they're recognizing it like Soccer and Jetty and saying, hey, I'm in fear of this because I believe that the Democrats are going to do this when they get back in power. They're not, but I'm glad that you have that fear. I'm glad that that fear is in you. I want that fear to stay there, and I want them to believe that there are still rules and regulations and things that we still need to hold up to, because when the other side get into power, and it looks like that we're going to, that those who have crossed the line and those that have done these massive crimes in this era will be held accountable. People need to be held accountable. Like, say what you want about the woke era and that era and people being held accountable. Trump would have VP Harris and Biden would have never sent people to El Salvador. They never would have sent people to an African prison because they did not like their free speech. like 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 even though President Obama and that administration was looked at as the deporter in chief, right? The barbaric nature of how this administration is doing things, it has crossed the veil even for a majority of his voters, right? And you see it in the podcast world with Joe Rogan and some of the others who are now turning on Trump, right? But that's a different
Yep.
conversation.
Mhm.
I am happy, and I will always be happy that we are. Yes, most protests can be very performative. I will grant you that 100%. But the fact that you are getting people are aware and getting involved, I feel like is the bigger thing, because we need people to be aware and not be sleepwalking into fascism. We need to fight back, and we need
Yeah.
people to understand and be aware of what's going on. So I feel like on that note, I feel like the No Kings protest could definitely be a success. I don't want this energy to be then co-opted into us going back into things that got us Trump. Like, I think that's my biggest fear. My biggest fear is just that, yeah, we're gonna feel good about stepping out and protesting, and then the same people who tells you, hey, we need to run pro-life conservatives in purple states, like like those
Yeah.
people are going to be fighting back or trying to fight back, and or trying to lead us against fascism. And as we have seen, capital owners do not care if fascists take over the government. They care if the trains get here on time. They care
Hmm.
if the planes land
Ah,
because they care more about their money than they care about how the country is ran.
I think
And
that's
that is the thing that I feel like we need to make sure we are keeping in mind.
yeah, and that segues into kind of my final point about this, which is I think what a lot of the critiques are getting at, as well as even like well-meaning people who are maybe don't think those critiques are fair, which is to say, well, it's ineffectual for everybody to just show up with a sign, etc. And the missing ingredients is disruption. I think one of the people who got closest to kind of understanding this was Brandon Johnson, Mayor of Chicago, who said we need something like
a
a general
a
strike.
general strike,
Yeah, and yeah, exactly
and
because
he
yeah,
was popping off.
yeah,
His speech is worth watching. Mehdi Hassan's speech is worth watching. Um, who else? I saw what's his name? What's his name? Even Hassan Piker and others was at a couple of them rallies. Like
yeah.
there's quality stuff that's out there of people who are saying, no, we have gone too far. Y'all might have complained about wokeness, but wokeness never got us this. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So
So
I just wanted to like kind of cap off by saying like, the thing is like, yes, it's not a general strike, what happened over the weekend, but I really do think it's a step that can be taken in the right direction. Like as you said, Lawrence, there is always
yeah.
a big danger of it, that energy being co-opted back into, like all the energy is just like getting Gavin Newsom elected in 2 years. It's just like again,
Oh
just
God.
diminishing returns. But
Yeah.
like what Brandon Johnson was pointing out is, the Trump administration, like if we got literally 50% of the country out in the streets for, no kings 3.0, we've seen how Trump will react. He'll make an AI video about taking a dump on everybody. Like,
Yeah.
the only language these people understand is money. And I think it's important to understand that yes, you need disruption. You need things like general strikes. You need things that are going to disrupt the daily status quo. You need sustained protest that is going to continue. I think it some
We need boycotts. We need
boycotts.
boycotts.
Yeah. Hmm.
There's a story. There's a story that I do want to talk about. I didn't get a chance to put in our rundown
Yeah.
of there are Israeli settlers who are stealing Palestinian olives and grapes and then
Yeah.
bottling those things up and making wine and selling those things in America. That's another conversation that needs to
Yeah.
happen. Like, yo, there are going to be people, and I say it now, who just like the comedians who went to Saudi Arabia, there are people who we have to keep in line, uh, because they are taking blood money. Like we have to be on people's necks. It's not just politicians, but it's people who we say if we're gonna make a stand, like, yo, this administration, what they're doing, they're stepping on people's constitutional rights. They're not just following the Constitution. They're disobeying human rights. They're doing massive human rights violations. Nah, and we're not for any of this. Then we have to not just organize and strategize, but we got to make sure that we are holding everyone. We need to make sure that people are informed, and we got to make sure that we are holding people accountable. and
Absolutely. Yeah.
and that's what the whole purpose of that protest. Outside of the funny stuff that happened at that protest, like I saw one of the signs of one of the little kids that said, "Trump tried to date my girlfriend," and it was like a middle schooler. Hilarious. Um,
Yeah,
and
I mean, it
other
was a
and
mixed bag. We had signs calling out capitalism, but I did see
yeah,
from Kalamazoo in particular, some of like if Kamala was president, we could go back to brunch. And that's some political
Yeah,
education work that needs to get done. You got liberal
yeah.
friends, you got to say there ain't no going back to brunch. All right.
No, no. Yeah, I would like to go to brunch, but because of how this economy is right now,
Who can still afford
brunch
brunch?
and
The
yeah,
1%.
if you can still afford brunch, if you can still afford brunch in this economy, you are doing well.
Yeah.
You're
All
doing
right.
very well.
Yeah.
I ain't mad
Mhm.
at you. You know what I'm saying? But geez,
All right. So we
yeah,
only got about 20 minutes left, but yeah, just cliff notes. Yeah, we need a general strike, but we need to build community to get there because that is a big communal project. And stuff like
yes,
no kings can feed into that, but we don't want that energy co-opted back into neoliberalism. Uh, but we've got other
yeah.
things we got to cover too. Lawrence, do we want to hit on the Supreme Court or the ceasefire? What did you want to talk about next?
Okay, so I'll do a quick hit. Um, Reuters and other um publications has been talking about how the Supreme Court. This is not if you read Project 2025 and we talked about it. These are things about 60 to 70% of what Project 2025 talked about. Um, they have done or trying to do. This is one of them. Gutting Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. The Supreme Court is looking to do so very soon. I want to remind everyone that it was things like Section 2 that has to deal with redistricting, gerrymandering, and things of that nature, rewriting who you're voting for, and not just and rewriting how people are voting. You know what I'm saying? Like uh, and and making things like gerrymandering worse. Um, it's going to erase so many people, especially in red states, especially people of color, women, veterans, people who, if you vote by mail, if you are overseas in your voting in our election, all of those things are covered under the Voting Rights Act that they're trying to gut. It is going to be devastating if and when they're going to do it. And I feel like it's a win because this is something that Stephen Miller and other very neo-Nazi adjacent people want. If you read that Telegram conversation that they had published a few days ago that made big news, which we also need to talk about because the vice president was defending these grown men and women of saying very horrible things. Uh, this is the type of policy that they want. This is the type of policy that they stand for, and it's it's. I cannot stress how bad it's going to get for our country, especially minorities, especially women, if this passes, or when that passes, or when they gut it. But
Yeah, I want
these
to.
these are things that we talk about when we talk about how you vote and what you need to be thinking about when you vote. Because
It's important to underscore too that, like, you may have heard in the news, or we talked about this a little bit, the Texas plan to redistrict, basically in the middle, right before a midterm election, which is unprecedented, but basically at the
yeah,
behest of the president, redistrict Texas to as eliminate majority and minority districts. And if this,
especially districts that Jasmine Crockett and others are a part of. So again, these are targeting black officials.
mhm. And if this Supreme Court decision goes the way a lot of people are expecting it to, it would basically give a license for every Republican controlled state legislature to do the same thing. And I mean, technically, the Democrats could also do it there, but they have a little bit less leverage to do that because even in a situation like state like California,
Prop
I think
50.
the
Hey, Prop 50.
Prop 50, that's true. Fight fire
Yeah.
with fire. I don't know. Again,
Will
whether
it
the
be as
Democrats would
effective?
fight fire with fire is an open question. I mean, they're talking about doing that in
Yeah.
California, but um, it would eliminate it would eliminate accurate or proper representation. Particularly, I think a lot of like the Bible Belt or the Black Belt in Deep South, where a lot of these places are like majority black, and these conservative state legislatures would like gerrymander these districts basically to death until they get basically try to tramp down uh, anything looking like correct representation. Like I can't think of anything comparable to it outside of like Reconstruction. The way this could really just put a 180 on even like kind of the meager representative democracy we currently have.
Yeah, it is. It would definitely take us back to it. It will, as Republicans always talk about, they want to make America great again, and how what they believed it was great in America was the 1950s. This will be taking us back to the 1950s, not in a good way.
No.
Not in a good way. This is taking us back in the 1950s in the worst way possible.
Yeah. It's always funny too. The things that Republicans like, they always have nostalgia for the '50s, but any of the stuff that was good about the '50s were because of like unions and the stuff we had, like, a better
The
industrial
tax rate
economy.
on corporations.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
even if I wanted to say like the GI Bill and things of that nature, I mean, it was good, but the GI Bill also excluded black folks. I mean,
yeah, they did.
so but that's a different. It did raise a lot of poor people out of poverty. It did help a lot of soldiers that was coming back into homes. There was
Yeah.
also a lot of white
It's
flight
funny
and
how
things of
they
that
always
nature.
think like if we bring back the racism of the '50s, their economic lot is somehow going to improve without bringing back
Yeah.
any of the economic policies. It's like,
Yeah.
we're punishing brown people, but I'm still poor. What's happening? I don't.
Yeah, yeah. That's basically this administration. That's
Yeah,
this administration. Okay.
that
So
is a rotten
I
carrots that's being dangled in front of
yeah,
a lot of people right now. Yeah,
Doug is like you see that especially now. My last quick hit because I know that we also need to talk about Gaza. There was a viral. There was a viral. We talk about media all the time, right? And there was this viral video of this young Latino woman. I'm not gonna put her name out here because the story the story makes me upset, but I want to talk about it. There's been multiple stories of Latinos who voted for Trump, and her father, who is terminally ill, is in immigration prison now. There is in an immigration cell. She voted for them. She voted for Trump. She uh and she's doing this video talking to the judges, pleading with them, and they're like, nah. And they're basically saying no, like no, you're he's being deported. There's nothing we can do about it. These are and this, that, and the third. And I want to make it very clear, and this is my the last quick hit that I want to talk about the story. And we'll put all this information in the doobly doo when we upload it. Um, People, when the Republicans tell you who they are, believe them. And if they tell you that they're going to do fascist things, believe that they're going to do fascist things. So we need to then fight back against it. We need to come together and work together and fight back against it. That's what the No Kings protest, in many ways, how I felt about it. It's multiple people being like, "Oh no, no, they were telling the truth," and now we are all coming together to see that they're telling the truth, right? And now we also are like, "Hey, we are telling y'all we don't have time to mess around here. We have to work it out."
yep. No, absolutely, like 1,000%. So with that, I want to talk a little bit. There was a quote unquote ceasefire in um
Mm.
yeah. So there's that. I don't know who coined this, but a ceasefire to a Palestinian is like the Palestinians cease and Israel fires, and that is what we have
Pretty much.
seen since the ceasefire. something like, as of October 19th, something like 97 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli forces. Um, and particularly, like, last Sunday, they massacred 45 Palestinians in a single event. Um, so we had I really want to kind of focus on the media angle of this, because at first, you had Israel accusing Hamas of breaking the ceasefire terms because I hear one of their vehicles ran over some unexploded Israeli ordnance that had been fired into Gaza during the war, during the genocide, and they blamed Hamas for it. And then it was very clear to anybody watching that they were, again, more like propaganda, straight up telling some untruths. And the administration, actually the Trump administration, told them to kind of step back from that a little bit. But we are in the situation where the IDF continues to kill people in Gaza. That is somehow not a violation of the ceasefire. But Hamas, or the Palestinians on the ground, if they can attribute an act of violence that they're not guilty of, or even like kind of Hamas trying to assert its authority in the Gaza Strip, that can be pointed to as a violation of the ceasefire. Which, even though the again, at no point did the Palestinian negotiators say anything about them, surrendering their arms or anything like that, but Israel is doing their absolute best to sabotage the ceasefire from the jump, and is continuing to kill Palestinians. All the while, the Western press, the Western media, has been absolutely silent on it, and has been running headlines recently about how it's all Hamas's fault if the ceasefire gets broken, which again is just ridiculous. How again, however you feel about what happened on October 7th, it is important to note that, again, Hamas was willing to do this, make this deal back in January. And in fact, they were willing to give all the hostages back a week after October 7th, like 2 years ago, if the IDF promised not to come into the Strip, which of course that was violated. Kind of shows you where the priorities of the Israeli government are. But you would not know that from reading Western press. I think it was recently a headline from the Washington Post that was, again, talking about how if the ceasefire fails, it's Hamas's fault, despite the fact that Israel is the one who's been killing Palestinians, not vice versa.
Yeah, if you've been paying attention to a lot of the if you so breaking this down from a media perspective, what you hear in American media and English speaking, when you're more English speaking American media, when Israel's talking about Gaza and their plans for what they're going to do with Palestine and Gaza, they will tell us one thing, right? They will tell us they're bringing in aid, they're bringing in food, they're warning them in advance before they strike. But when they are speaking in Hebrew and into Israeli media, they tell you the truth of what they really think. And what they really think is, yeah, they're not getting any land back. We will occupy all of this territory. None of their lives are worth anything. And this is what we are going to do. They are doing their settler colonial project the same way America did uh, at the beginning of this country to indigenous Americans. It's just that they're now doing it to Jordan. They're doing it to they bomb Jordan, they bomb Syria, and we see what they're doing in Gaza. Their plan is very clear. They don't see Palestinians as equals. They see them as people that should enjoy their subjugation. And it bothers. I think the thing that now You're seeing APAC and DFDFIA PAC, the Democratic lobbying wing of APAC now, which they've made it much more complicated to say. So because APAC is now a household term to recognize that their influence is getting politicians to do the bidding of Israel in America, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we see now that you have you have what they're doing. They will violate their ceasefires. They will violate their pacts. They will violate the terms and conditions of what they want other people to do. And then if you call them out on it, then you're a Hamas sympathizer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the problem. There, I if you read what their agreement was, there was no solidarity or equality or equity for the people of Palestine in that agreement. There was nothing in that agreement that says, hey, we're going to try to be fair and equitable to the people that we have been harming. Nothing like that.
Nope. Mm-mm.
So for them to violate something that they honestly don't care about is Tuesday. So
Yep.
I it I think that for me and the main thing for me is that I wish that more people cared about this before October 7th last year, but every 10 days after October 7th, Israel was doing an October 7th to Gaza and to the
Yeah.
West Bank and to anyone that they felt that they could do it to with our money. So and this is a slight detour from this conversation because I want to keep on to this conversation, but there's a slight detour that I want to make with it. Americans understand that there are other conflicts going on. What's going on in Darfur is bad. What's going on in the Congo is horrible. What's going on with the Uyghur Muslims and with China is horrible. What's going on in Ukraine is horrible. We directly fund Israel's genocide. That's the difference. The difference is that we directly impact their ability to continue what they're doing. This is the reason why uh, when you see Gavin Newsom and Cory Booker and the other dude that went on the Breakfast Club, and the conversation turns to Israel, and we're like, and the host is telling them, look, we're not supporting people who takes money from Israel or takes money from APAC. That they start to shut down. They start to control alt delete, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're polished when it comes to everything else. When it comes to everything else, they are flawless. But when it comes to Israel, they cannot answer questions directly, right?
Yep.
The American people are starting to see that we are funding a genocide, but in funding a genocide, our livelihood is not getting better. But we're watching kids get burnt to death in 4K.
Yeah.
This is not okay. This is not okay. We can do better. We can be better.
Well, with that, I think we need to wrap things up. It's just about 2 o'clock here in the studio. Lawrence, I want to thank you for spending time out of your day coming back and getting a chance to really talk about the issues again. Anything else to say before we close?
Oh man, there's a bunch of stuff. We'll talk afterwards because we have that content that we gotta do with PMN. The podcast that we gotta do with PMN.
Mm.
So that's the conversation that me and you got.
All right.
But yeah, Doc, there's so many stories that we need to talk about. I still want to talk about these ICE and these national guards uh, uh, and the terrorism that they've been doing to Americans. That boomerang effect of what was done in Abu Ghraib and 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 that imperial boomerang that we did to other countries has now been being done to Americans.
Yep.
Uh, that's a whole conversation that we need to have. Um, Man, we have to talk about the fact there's so much stuff to talk about with the economy. Uh, with the fact that grocery prices have gone up 40%, even for like ground beef.
Hmm.
Like there's so many things. Yeah. Um, but yeah, we that's a whole another conversation. We'll have a bunch of quick hits and stuff to talk about another time.
All right. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Again, you can find us online, Facebook, YouTube, Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast on most podcasting apps. Until next time, everybody, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.